Thank you, audience, for joining us for another episode of Elisha Space. It is my pleasure to have you all with us today as we continue in this safe space for our own respective healing journeys. Today, I'm very excited to share with you that I have Dr. Diane Mueller, ND, DAOM, who is a board certified sexologist with dual doctorates as naturopathic as well as acupuncture and oriental medicine. She is the founder of the sex education center, mylibidodoc.com, and host of the Libido Lounge podcast, where she helps monogamous couples create more passion, desire, hotter sex, and better communication. So I'd like to thank you today for joining me today at Elisha Space.
Oh, thank you, Elisha.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you with us today. I'm really excited about this. I just am in the process of starting a group for the practice for couples. I thought our timing was perfect because when I meet with couples, we talk intimacy and sex often comes up. So this is a conversation that needs to be had. In my opinion, we need to have this conversation more rather than less.
Yeah, I think it's also the opinion of so many others. There's one survey I saw that showed that 70% of people reported that they wanted to talk to their doctor or clinician about sex and didn't.
Wow.
70%, right? That's a lot. So when I hear stuff that, it just makes me so grateful to be here with you and on platforms like this because the need to talk about this is huge, but I think because it's still taboo, which is also insane in 2025,
Absolutely.
people just feel, well, I don't know. Am I going to offend somebody? Is this the appropriate thing? And we don't really have a place yet where people know, oh, this is where I can go to have these conversations safely, get my questions answered, get ideas, support my relationship. So it's a long-winded way of saying, yeah, I agree with what you just said with what I've seen in surveys.
Yeah. What brought you to this place where you decided that you wanted to go this direction? Because you could have gone anywhere. What made you decide to go this way?
There's been so many stories over my life that have brought me in and out of, okay, this is the thing, this is not the thing, this is not my only business. So I have many different things that have guided me down my different paths.
Yeah, I have a
One of
similar
the
story too.
yeah, one of the biggest things that makes me recommit over and over are stories like this of like being out to eat. Like I was on vacation this summer with my partner. We were in Florida in a cute town called St. Augustine. And we were sitting at this great restaurant overlooking the ocean and looking around at the tables of all the people, all the couples that were sitting there, not even looking at each other and spending their whole time in silence staring into space. But it was the energy with it around here they are, probably on vacation too. There's no affection. There's no, at least like staring into each other's eyes and smiling and holding a hand and maybe enjoying that space where maybe they don't have something to say. Silence is not a problem. But it's seeing stuff like that and seeing the number of people that I feel like are really struggling intimately and seeing that when we see studies like the study that got produced by Harvard in 2023 that showed of all the things that relate to aging well and longevity, the number one thing that actually was the most impactful to health wasn't water, wasn't food, wasn't exercise. It was relationships and connection. So
Mhm.
knowing that, and then these times over and over again where I just see these couples that it just breaks my heart because I know they once upon a time were in love. I know once upon a time they were probably very, very passionate. And connection's my most important value. It's clear that connection is the most important value to most humans. And so it's really that those kind of things just break my heart and I want to do something about it. So that's really the day-to-day things that continue to motivate me to be on this path.
100% in agreement with you because when we leave this earth, it's our connections that matter. Could you tell me how emotional health and intimacy are interconnected?
they're so interconnected. One of the things in medicine, and my approach and my work is really about bringing the medicine, research, and the sexy together.
Mm-hmm.
And in medicine, we see all these vicious cycles, as I call them, and they're the chicken and the egg. So it's okay, emotions and libido. Well, it's a chicken and the egg situation in their relationship, meaning if we have negative emotional health, that can hurt libido.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example, your audience, a specific examples here is it's pretty obvious to probably most people that, oh, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I'm feeling stress or anxiety, that does not tend to make me want to have sex. Right. Every once in a while, somebody will be like, oh, yeah, stress is this huge motivator. And if I feel intense, I just want to go at it in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that does happen, but that's definitely not the majority of people. But either way, that's still emotion, stress, anxiety, depression impacting libido. But what's interesting is we see oxytocin, our major hormone that gets released at orgasm, also gets released when we hug, although hugging will increase oxytocin in our blood about 20 to 50%. Orgasm increases oxytocin in our blood 200 to 500%. So dramatically more, right? And so that hormone, we see that when oxytocin goes up really high, anxiety reduces, depression reduces, cortisol, our stress hormone that everybody is talking about as far as just being too stressed and whatnot. So we see all of these things, anxiety, depression, overwhelm, stress, all of these very common emotional struggles that us humans have. And engaging in sex is one of the antidotes for them. But the problem is, and the vicious cycle is, well, we're too emotionally out of balance oftentimes. So we're not then engaging in sex. But when we're not engaging in sex, we're not releasing the hormone enough that's actually designed. And I believe our God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call that energy, given hormone to regulate us. So it's
Right.
this very vicious cycle.
How can people who are emotionally unbalanced become more balanced in that area?
Yeah, from a standpoint of emotional balance, truly, we need to look at so many different areas, right? My work is in part all about helping people understand root causes. Yeah, and the way that I imagine you describe it is similar to me, where it's okay, there's more than one root cause. So I don't know if you find this in your work, but so many times people are, oh, well, it must be that parasite or something. And I was like, well, yeah, there could be a parasite, but it's probably going to be a parasite
Right. So it's
right.
an unlayering. Right.
It's an layering, yeah, and that's where people give the onion example and those kind of things, and, so when it comes to people are, "Okay, well, let's work on emotional health, something's out of balance." We do wanna consider all the basic foundational things that impact us, like what we eat, how we sleep, are we drinking water, are
Right.
we moving our body, all
Right.
of those physical things, of course. But when it comes to libido and sex and using libido as a way of improving those, I think one of the most important things to understand for so many people, but especially women, is that for women, arousal happens before desire. So this means that with desire being of the mind, so the mind's, oh, I am horny, I want to have sex. Arousal, I feel sensation in my body, it feels good. And so one of the biggest things that happens is, especially I said for women, what we see in research is that it takes to be aroused. It takes feeling the sensation in your body to let go of the stressors of the day to actually get into that point where eventually it's, oh, sex does sound good. So a lot of that is also related to what I have found is that the capacity for pleasure is directly related to the capacity for presence. Right. And the easiest thing is that I will stress eating versus pleasure eating. So it's time for lunch. We're sitting down. We're scarfing our food while we're working. We're barely tasting it, barely chewing it. It's done in 2 minutes. Believe me, I can say that well because I've done that plenty of times. That obviously is not pleasure. So we're not present with it. We're not tasting it. Versus like sitting down and being like, oh, I'm going to take a lunch break. Maybe I'm going to sit down with my coworkers, sit outside, have a nice conversation, totally get to know them. There's going to be a lot more presence in that. I'm slowly eating. I'm paying attention to my environment. I'm paying attention to my coworker. So the capacity for pleasure is going to go up a lot. And the same is to be said with our sensual selves. So one of the first things oftentimes for people, if they are feeling emotions and they're like they can't get there, one of the first things is to just get back into the sensations of the body. And this can be through breath work, this can be through sensual massage, this can be through dance. The idea with it is you really dropping into the five senses and really feeling things, feeling the body versus being in our heads,
Hmm.
which it is very difficult to enjoy pleasure if we're thinking about the to-do list and all those things. And it takes some time. It's a meditative like practice, pleasure really is.
It sounds like you almost have to literally embody intentionality and mindfulness when you're doing this. You have to really be focused around that.
There's like this level. One things that I sometimes ask people is like, how many people have ever thought about the grocery list while they're making love? Right? And a lot of people in a live audience will raise their hands. Like,
Mhm.
I've done it. And it can be shocking sometimes if partners haven't done it for partners to hear this. But the point is like when we are in our heads, like we are not experiencing pleasure. And like just like with meditation, and I know meditation very, very well. I've gotten certified in meditation. I have done 36-day meditation retreats, like on and on and on. So I know it well. And one of the things with meditation, it's all about like people think it's just about sitting in silence and just holding focus, but that's not really what it's about. It's about the mind wanders to the grocery list and then recognizing the mind wanders and it's like, oh no, I'm supposed to focus here. So
Right.
it's more the act of noticing the mind and bringing it back when it does wander. So many people are, well, I can't meditate because I can't sit still. And it's more, well, if you notice your mind wandering and you actually noticed it, guess what? You're already doing it successfully. And the mind wandered. We're not going to shame it. We're not going to judge it. We're just going to recognize, oh, wow, I'm here connecting to my partner and I want to, but my mind's way over there. Maybe I want to bring my mind back here so I really can connect. And we just free ourselves from any guilt or shame around that and just get back into the present. And just with meditation, this is a practice. And the more we practice, oh, with pleasure, being my job is to let go of today and do this. This is a moment just for me and just for my partner. And the more we practice that, the easier it does get to let go of the day. But even though I'm very practiced this over decades now, I still have days where my mind is very busy and it still wanders too much. And I still have to really engage with this practice. So it is a work in progress always, but it really is. That's a huge part of it. It's just I'm in the present. I'm with my pleasure. I'm in the present. I'm with my pleasure.
Sometimes I think that's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is where I get into the conversation of scheduling sex too, which a lot of people, when I first say this, they're like, well, I want this to be spontaneous. And there's a couple things that I always respond when people say that. And the first is when we're in new relationships and we're all in that hot and bothered stage, we kind of always schedule sex because we make a date. Then we make another date and another date. And once we have our first kiss or make love for the first time, when we have these dates, oftentimes we go into these dates thinking, okay, well, I'm probably going to have sex tonight. Right. And so maybe people get gussied up more, do whatever they do. That is in many ways. We're saying we have a date night Friday night. It's probably going to end in the bedroom. So maybe I want to be sexy for the night kind of thing.
Right.
So it's only later on in the relationship when we have the kids and the careers and we combine houses and lives and a crap load of responsibility that all of a sudden we stop scheduling it and then are, well, why is this not in my life anymore? So that's one. But the second thing is to make a pie chart and make a list. And on the list, what you're putting on the list is your top values, top to bottom. So hopefully you and your partner are right up there. And then on the pie chart, what you're putting is you're doing 24 hours of 24 pieces of pie to represent the 24 hours a day. Hopefully, 7 to 9 of them are you're sleeping. And then the rest of the hours, what you're doing is writing in what you're doing on an average day. And here's the thing we know that, yes, there's kids, there's jobs, there's all these things. But we also know that couples that do not prioritize each other do not tend to last.
Right.
And if your partner is like, you do the value list and your partner's at the top, right at the top, and hopefully they are, and you don't see them on the pie chart, you actually have a big relationship problem that, if not fixed, we're not just talking about sex here, we're talking about longevity of the relationship. So I like people to do this because sometimes there's this aha moment of, oh my goodness, yes, I do have screaming baby and all these things, but my partner doesn't even have a place on here. So maybe I do need to find a babysitter 1 or 2 hours a week where I can actually put in some time for my partner and schedule it.
Okay. For couples that have been together for a long time, I think that's a great idea as far as the scheduling piece. Because when I've mentioned that in the past and before, people were like, I don't like that idea. But I like your idea of doing the pie chart and actually seeing you really need to be again, going to being intentional, you know, about the relationship. What about for couples that have been together for a while? Maybe they become empty nesters and they are in the process of rediscovering intimacy with one another, but maybe one person or the other just doesn't have the libido that they used to have anymore. How would you what would you suggest for them?
There's so many things. I mean, first of all, I would do invite people to go take my libido quiz. It's totally free, and the people can find that at libidoquiz.com. So that's super easy to memorize, right? Libidoquiz.com. And what it does, it's a quiz that I developed and put actually a lot of time into this quiz to make sure the answers were all coming out correct. And what it's looking at are the top physical reasons for low libido. And especially when we're talking about empty nesters, but people of all ages, the longer we live, oftentimes the more things are out of balance. But the point of the quiz is to actually tell you the top reasons from a physical perspective why libido is low. And then it'll spit out for you answers that will say, hey, these are test results that are your doctor might not order for you, but these are actually really probably pretty pertinent to you. So take these to your doctor and ask them about them. So it helps people self advocate for themselves. So I definitely encourage people to go take that quiz for one. Desire mismatch is part of what you're talking about. It's a huge thing I work with. And one of the most important steps is beginning to talk about sex in general, because we do see there's tons of studies. For example, there's one that shows that 92% of people who had the happiest sex lives talk about them. And so we do have to begin to talk about things. And one thing in the beginning conversations of desire mismatch, beginning to broaden the definition of sex, because most people, at least in the hetero space, if there is conversation around sex, it's thought to be a penetration or intercourse. In the homosexual space, then there's a lot more fluidity around that typically. But when I ask heterosexual couples, it's almost always penetrative sex that comes up when we use the word sex. So we really want to consider, first of all, broadening our definition, because sometimes we'll find that, oh, well, one partner might not be interested in that as much, but if we could be sensual in this other way, that might be valuable and they might be interested. So we can sometimes create this thing where it's okay, well, maybe we're playing in this other way more that's going to appease both couples. And maybe it's not always penetration, right? So there's ability to be curious there. But the most foundational step really is to start being safe to talk about it, because we're not going to change this if we don't converse. And so, truly, before even doing anything, the real first foundational skill is learning how to have these conversations without getting triggered, because it's so common that it's natural as humans that we oftentimes want to ego protect if we feel like we're doing something wrong in bed. And so, what I encourage people to do to begin these conversations is start telling their partner things that they love sensually or sexually. So, anything that's involving touch, right? So, this could be the way they rub your hand under the table. This could be the way they kiss you goodnight. This could be the way you're having sex or anything in that realm. And the idea here is to only talk about things initially that you love and to be very specific about it. So it's not just, hey, I like the way you hold my hand. It's like, I like the way you hold my hand under the table because I feel we have this secret thing happening at dinner, and it's giving my body chills and it makes me happy and I'm smiling on the inside, and we want to build it up a little bit so our partner can really understand the impact. But what we're really training people here and training our partner here is talking about sex with me is safe. Talking about sex is going to help us grow closer, right? And eventually we do want to address some of, okay, well, how do we work with the desire mismatch more? How do we do that on that? But the foundational things I always want to give people instant action steps is working on that foundational skill of communication so that as you build from there, it is done under that concept of true safety together.
If a couple is having some challenges and they don't feel safe in communication, do you have any suggestions on how they might start to feel safe? A lot of times when I'm talking with couples and they're in trouble, they're having intimacy problems because, especially for women, communication is the beginning of that intimacy process. So if the communication is off, the sex is going to be off. Do you have any suggestions for those couples that may be having some challenges with that as well?
From the emotional intimacy side you're talking about, I got this from Allison Armstrong. So I really recommend her book, The Queen's Code, for everybody. It's a great book to read if you're a woman or a man. She speaks more directly to women in that book, but it's very easy for people to hear that and to understand. What we're really looking at here is the impact of estrogen versus testosterone on the brain.
Right.
And so much of the time, we don't understand each other, estrogen dominant individuals or testosterone dominant individuals, because one of the things that estrogen will do, one of the things it'll do is it will create a situation where women have this diffuse awareness. And with that diffuse awareness, what women can do is we can take in everything at once. So this means that you walk into a room as a woman and you notice the trash needs to be taken out. There's dishes in the sink, the phone's ringing, your kids in the other room crying, and your partner might be talking at the same time, and you're somehow simultaneously managing all of that. Men's brains are very acutely focused in awareness. That's the impact of testosterone on the brain. And so, with that, it allows for this ability to say, well, this is the actionable thing. So, this is where all of my focus is. And everything gets pushed to the periphery because I'm only focused on the one thing that the job I'm supposed to be doing in this moment. I think people fundamentally know this kind of stuff on a fundamental level. But I think there's so much misunderstanding because we are oftentimes expecting partners to know what we want. This applies partners of any gender, right? And so we're expecting partners to know what we want. We're making assumptions. We're comparing them to the perfect human. So I do think a lot of times what we have is situations where we have micro traumas, right? We have situations where,
Right.
wow, my partner, I left the trash by the door because my partner was going out the door and they walked by it. And I just cleaned the whole kitchen this morning and they couldn't even take out the trash that I laid right there before they went to work. And that can be like a micro trauma and it can create these stories in the brain of like, do they care? They don't love me, like yada, yada. And we definitely want to be fixing those micro traumas. So here's where it's a little bit difficult to fully address this in a podcast because if people are really dramatically traumatized where these emotions are like just heightened to a level where they're not talking well, it is an area where I do think people might need like couples counseling or somebody to like navigate and hold the space while they work through this.
Right.
But one of the biggest things I find is like we have to begin to make it safe to address these micro traumas, and in order to do so, curiosity is like one of the best things I have found. So if it's like, hey, dang, my partner left that trash by the door on the way out. Wow, they don't care about me. They don't love me. They want me to do all the work or whatever sort of story we create because we're humans, we're story making machines. Really practicing like stopping ourselves and saying, well, I don't know actually why my partner didn't do that. And actually being curious and saying, like, hey, I left that trash out by the door this morning. I was hoping you would take it out. I'm not mad or anything. I just want to have a good working strategy together. I care about you so much. And I just want to understand what happened. Why did you not take it out? If you ask a curious question like that softly and lovingly, and if they respond in a way where it's gaslighting or not owning it, it truly is a really good sign that you probably do need somebody to help with the therapeutic process and the conversational process.
Mhm.
But oftentimes when we are talking to a partner and just saying, I noticed this and be factual, not making it, you're not bad, I'm not mad, I'm just trying to understand because I love you and I want to work together. Oftentimes, couples will find that they can get an answer and it can be just, oh, I didn't notice it. That can still be shocking around, gosh, he didn't even notice it or she didn't even notice it. But what we want to do in that moment is instead of being shocked, just like taking it as information of, oh, their brain works different than mine. That doesn't mean they're going to notice it. So if they don't notice it, then it's how can we take that and say, oh, okay, well, I'm feeling like burnt out and I'm feeling like I need more help in these ways. I thought that laying that there would communicate to you that I needed help. I can understand that it didn't, and I'm not mad, but how can I communicate to you that I would like your help in the future? And working in that way, we're not making people mad, bad or wrong, that sort of thing. But it's usually those curious things, non-attacking, just this is just purely me wanting to gather more information and sorting those things. But I do think we need to sort them out because those micro traumas, if we don't address them when they're small, they turn into that's where people wake up one day and they don't know each other anymore.
And they become big. So
They become big, they become the holes that sink the relationship ship.
right. Well, I mean, you think about your car, it's better to address the issues when they're small. If you ignore them, then you find out you got to get a new engine, which you might as well get a new car.
Exactly.
Your relationships to cars,
But it's a good analogy from a standpoint of just understanding, right? Because I think so many times we can even gaslight ourselves and say things like, okay, well, that wasn't that big of a deal and I'm just going to let it go. And we want to make sure that I think we're not responding with intensity of, a 10 out of 10 in intensity for something that really deserves a 1 out of 10 intensity, right? So I do think there is an appropriate level of emotional energy that gets put into these things. But the more that we can address them when they're not a big deal, truly is how we prevent them from becoming a big deal. If we've created any story in our mind, which we do, everybody has these voices that flow in their mind around, well, I didn't like that, or I'm not that, or that means that. And we just make up meanings. And it's so easy to believe those stories. So if we don't take a minute to check that out and say, okay, well, internally, I was believing that this means that. I'm going to actually check out what it does mean before I believe that story of mine. If we don't take moments to do that, it really does. It turns into the car breaking down scenario. It turns into that much bigger deal. One of the things I'll talk to couples about is not only having intimacy scheduled dates, but weekly emotional check-in scheduled dates where it's done in a safe space and hopefully done maybe over a candlelit room if you want, comfortable thing on the couch, babysitter, so you have some quiet, uninterrupted time. And it's just a time to say, hey, is there anything that happened this week that you're holding on to that we want to clear the air on? Oh, yeah, it did bother me a little bit when the trash wasn't taken out. Well, why did it bother you? Well, this is why. And talking through it, almost solving a problem without making anybody wrong.
this is probably one of the best interviews I've done. This is seriously, because
I'm so glad.
You're answering quite a few questions. You're addressing the community's needs and you're making it so practical for them. I'm so comfortable with referring you for some of the couples that I'm working with as well in this area. If someone wants to get in contact with you, how can they reach you? And do you have anything coming up as far as projects or anything of that nature, workshops?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question and for the referrals. I really look forward to collaborating with you and helping your community. Couple things, go take the libido quiz just at libidoquiz.com that I mentioned. Again, my book is out for pre-release. It's called Want to Want It. I have a ton of additional free bonuses that you get that are usually paid bonuses for being an earlier purchaser. So that is at wanttowantit.com. So super easy. I have an upcoming 3-day extravaganza. It's called the Eternal Honeymoon Extravaganza coming up. So definitely look out for that. It's normally a $397 event that I'm selling for $1 for 3 days, speakers all over the world. So that's coming up. To get started, the easiest things are just to go libidoquiz.com, wanttowantIt.com to get my book. And then I would just go, so you get used to my material and whatnot, go to my.com, which is my main website. I have a freebies tab on that website, super easy to find. I have a ton of free content. And that's where if you download any of my free content, I'll let you know when the extravaganza's coming up, discount codes, giveaways, all that. And that way people can get used to all my free content to see if working with me is also a good fit for them.
I will listen to the show notes, you guys, as I normally do. You can also email me at info@restoringyou.christiancounseling.com. If you want to get more of her information, I can send that to you as well. Because like I said, she and I will be doing future collaborations together. Audience, take the many jewels that she added to this podcast. Put it in your satchel. Utilize it. Sex is so important in relationships. It's a way to connect. It's also a temperature check as to where you are in your relationship. If you're feeling distant from one another, it's holistic in how it can be utilized within that relationship. It's extremely important. So definitely check out her material and utilize what she's referring to. Also, we'll have her information if you want to contact her directly. Until next time, as we continue to move forward within our healing journey. See you next time.